Welcome, Sujith, here in this interview for the Societies for the Future Network. And I'm so happy to have you here because we already have a path. We walked quite some years now. And lots of creative projects emerged from that. And even the Societies for the Future project was very, I would say, connected to our connection too, because it emerged also a bit in the fairy tales, which I wrote for your book, The 7 Mystical Laws of Abundance. And I was so, passionate about it and so inspired that the two persons emerged. That's Yoro and Leah, of course. Yoro, the father, and Leah, the girl, who just went on a journey and explored this new, I would say, 7 keys of abundance in those fairy tales. And in those fairy tales, what also emerged was, of course, the project for new schools, new education. And then eventually what that also meant was the new societies for the future, because new schools cannot really flourish without the whole I would say support of a whole community, a village, and a society. And I think human consciousness, the collective consciousness is really yearning for that, is really like, they want something new. They don't know exactly what, but they're sure they want something new. They don't want what has been there for already a long time. And of course, all those new ideas are emerging. And I'm so happy to have you here because I know you are an advocate for a new paradigm, a new way of looking at abundance, a new of experiencing abundance, and creating a whole paradigm from that new perspective of abundance and not from scarcity and fear and competition and everything what has to do with it. And I also know that you are coaching a lot of international institutions in that, I would say, in consciousness in general. And maybe can you add a little bit about my introduction? So is there anything else that people need to know before we start this interview? We started, of course, but
Briony, thank you. Thank you for having me in this conversation, and thank you for being who you are. You know, the path that we walked together for these past years. Indeed, as you correctly said, a lot of amazing things have unfolded, have emerged through our co-creative process, our evolving, purposive journey. So I'm very grateful for having had that journey so far with you. You know, you said something that struck me. A lot of people are wanting something new, you said. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually going to go ahead, in my role as a futurist for institutions, policymakers, national and supranational governments. All the insights, the knowledge that I'm receiving, the evolutions that I'm witnessing, I am prompted to say something else, Briony, and that is, it's not just that people want something new. It is that people better settle for something new. There's no choice for humanity looking at 8 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. There's no choice for humanity, whether it's in the north or the south, east or the west. No choice but to settle for the new. What I mean is, everything that we know today, that we hold on dear to us, our institutions, our ways of working, our nature of education, the type of employment that we have, the kind of living systems, financial, monetary, politics, community living, the way we know it, all of that is getting disrupted in the next 10 to 15 years. In fact, is not going to get disrupted in the next 10 to 15 years. We are in the middle of that disruption. So we better embrace the new, dance in the storm, love what is emerging rather than try to resist the new, so that we can hold on to the systems, the processes, the culture, the institutions of today. So I wanted to expand on that one thought that you shared that has become ever so clearly. And in this conversation, I can expand why that new is happening and what that new is going to look like, at least particularly in the context of education and employment. But I leave it to you, Briony, please. Please guide me where we want to go.
Yeah, I think you're now currently writing again a book, isn't it? About consciousness and about the stages of consciousness. I'm coincidentally writing a book about consciousness development for children. So it's never a coincidence, of course, and I think it's very related. But how do you see that development of consciousness in humanity? So what is our next step? What do we have to do as a humanity to take the next quantum leap?
Oh, there are so many layers to the question you just asked, and I don't know where to begin, but let me see. Children, one thought here. When it comes to children, our focus should not be about consciousness development. It should be about consciousness preservation. Children are born infinite, one, bliss, in pure awareness. At a cellular level, living and knowing the truth. That is how we are born as children. And then it's not that, they are purely clear of past life memories and karma and conditioning and predispositions and all of that. No, they have the propensity for all of that they carry from past lives. But when they are born as pure awareness. And then the drama begins. That our upbringing at home with our parents, the media that conditions us, our neighbors and our communities that kind of culturally form us in a certain way, and the biggest culprit of it all, our schools. What do? They condition us to be a certain way. And schools are not to blame, because our teachers, our policy makers, our bureaucrats, our school administrators, principals, directors, etc., they're not knowingly doing this damage of constricting the consciousness of our kids. They're not doing it knowingly. They themselves are unconscious. They are a product of decades, if not centuries, of conditioning. And if you look at our mainstream education, particularly in the West, that education is a consequence of our societal evolution of the last 120, 140 years. So if you look at the 19th century, where industrial age came upon us, then when later that kind of informed, of course, our way of education. And then more in the 80s, the information age came upon us. And that also informed to some extent how our education must be. And now, as we speak right now, Briony, we are in the moment of evolution from the information age to the awareness age. And education will reflect that new. It is unavoidable that evolution of education must happen, because education, mainstream education, responds to societal demands, economic demands, social demands, political demands. Industrial age needed a certain kind of student, a graduate, who can have consistency, conformity, trustworthiness, a certain median quality. Industrial age demanded that cognitive intelligence be the primal force, the leading factor that needs to be developed. Doesn't matter if you could be social intelligence or creative intelligence, intuitive intelligence or spiritual intelligence, you could be a dud, did not matter. As long as you had cognitive intelligence, that is what was needed. And the education system responded to the industrial demands, to the economic demands, and it's become what it's become today, as a result of which it is more constricting consciousness than expanding.
Yeah, I cannot more agree. So it's certainly, and that's also what is discussed in this book I'm currently writing now. Maybe for people who listen later, it will already been published. So maybe you can look in the description, and you can find it already. But true, it's what you, of course, you're born as unity consciousness. And of course, you step by step, you transform into something which is more a product of the mind, of the human mind, and you become more disconnected from that consciousness. And it's for us as humanity, of course, the process of reconnecting again with that inner child inside. That's also the story of Leah. And I also told you, because the story of Yoro and Leah started with our co-creation in an online abundance training together when COVID struck. And the funny thing is that the whole story of Yoro and Leah is now going on in that book. So the whole book is around that story between those two archetypes in ourselves, the archetype of the human mind, that's Yoro, and the archetype of the inner child, and that's Leah. And how they talk and discover each other and challenge each other and inspire each other to take the next leap in consciousness for humanity as a whole, of course. So there's a lot of wisdom in there to find. And especially on the what is your feeling around? I know a lot of people have like double feeling around those international institutions. And they have the feeling that they're more there to control than to, really support humanity in their, maybe even control in the sense has also a reason, you know, when somebody is controlling you, you as a person has to create your inner power stronger and create more clarity for yourself. What do you then want for the future? And how are you going to do it? So in a sense, that also has a place, of course, in the whole human game. But what is your feeling around those international institutions? Because you're so deeply connected with them in the sense that you're already doing your best in creating more consciousness in that field too. So what could you give as feedback on that?
It's again, you know, your question, Briony, has many layers to it. So let me try to unpack a few things. You know, firstly, institutions are made of people. An institution is nothing but an aggregation of people. And when a set of people come together and start practicing in a certain way, it starts to manifest as culture. And what ends up happening is after a while, those people leave and new people come into these institutions. They unconsciously adopt the culture of the institution. And that institution just continues perpetuating that way. And it's very, very important to recognize that institutions, our institutions, the kind of society that we built around us, is a reflection of our consciousness. So institutions are just projections of our individual and collective consciousness. They reflect our consciousness, not just the consciousness of the people who work in the institutions, but the consciousness of the constituents, that we are. So if we start complaining about our political institutions, I say stop. Because if you're complaining about your political institutions or education institutions, you're actually complaining about yourself. And that is victimhood. So let's be heroes, not victims. Now, having said that, these institutions are just a projection of our consciousness, Briony, where we need to start, and we've already started this, not just during the pandemic time, way before the pandemic time. We've actually started this process of individual and collective evolution of consciousness, expansion of consciousness. We've begun that. Look at the education sector in the West. From the land, your motherland, what's happening? More and more people around us have started to understand that change is inevitable. Our children are actually not being served well when we think about their intuitive intelligence, their manifestation intelligence, their social intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Our education system does not serve any of that. The system is designed for a system that is already become obsolete, the industrial age. Now, I meet so many parents, so many teachers, so many policymakers, well-wishers, futurists, visionaries, who have recognized this, Briony. And as a result, what's happening? In West European countries, holistic schooling, I don't like to use the word alternate schooling. That means when you say it's alternate schooling, what you're implying is alternate to something else that you're willing to accept is the mainstream. I refuse to do that. I don't like the word alternate schooling. The accurate representation of that new schooling that is starting to grow at 500% a year in some of these countries. I like to call it holistic schooling. A schooling that takes into account all the 5 primordial intelligences of children and nurture them. A schooling that focuses both on the objective sciences and on the subjective sciences. An education that focuses both on the technocracy and the consciousness of children. An education that focuses as much on knowledge as on the content of the character of the children. That is holistic. Wholeness is the mission. Now, if you look at West European countries, holistic schooling is growing at the rate of 500% a year. Now, that is what we do when we want to alter the arc of human evolution. So we can complain about the institutions that we have, saying like, look at law enforcement. The word law enforcement already feels so top down that there is a higher body above us who is enforcing law because we are idiots, because we are stupid people. We cannot self-govern ourselves. Canada is a great example where the police force is very, very top down, very top down. Law enforcement, very adolescent in its consciousness. We can complain about that, or we can start self-governing ourselves. So these institutions, first thing, are made of people. My role in these institutions, Briony, is to hold space without judgment for all those good-willing people within these institutions to rethink themselves. And when they experience an expansion of consciousness in these institutions, you start noticing the vision and mission of the institution changes, the culture of the institution changes, the processes and the systems within these institutions change. And when they don't change, these people who awaken within institutions, they leave these institutions and start other institutions, or they join other institutions that more accurately reflect their consciousness. And what that does to some of these legacy institutions, and we are starting to see that. Best example, UNESCO. UNESCO was an institution that was established after the Second War. In fact, the whole United Nations was established as an institution after the Second War. And the consciousness level of United Nations was stuck on one thing: self-preservation. That means no more war. That was the precept upon which the United Nations was founded. But now, 75, 80 years later, we have the millennials and the Gen Z people. We have the pioneers, the thought leaders like you, Briony, leading the way from that survival consciousness to self-realization consciousness for all of humanity. And suddenly, the United Nations or NATO does not reflect that evolving reality. They are still stuck in the dinosaur age, thinking that there are imaginary wars out there, and we should be reinforcing these institutions against these imaginary wars. You try to have this conversation with millennials or Gen Z people, you get a blank stare in return, because those generations don't relate to that warmongering, that neoconservatism. So these institutions will become obsolete, and that's okay. But within these institutions, there are many amazing people who want to reform those institutions, revive those institutions, or they want to just leave and create new institutions like new holistic schools, new political and governance bodies. All of this is happening. So the important takeaway in all of this, Briony, for us is stop blaming institutions. Our institutions are just a reflection of our consciousness. Do something about it, and our institutional world will be very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message, because in the field of people waking up, of course, there's always that large amount of I would say, energy also, which is going through to resistance, and at a certain stage. But it's also a stage in your awakening process, of course. At a certain moment there comes more empathy, and then you can see that it's also part of you. And it's just up to you to take action in that field. The moment you feel it's clear for you the next steps you have to take. And I think that's also what we're doing with this movement, of course, from Societies for the Future. It's like, okay, everybody who feels taking action, take action. We have a community, an online community for that. You can connect with each other. You can start developing methods. You can share it already in your neighborhood. You can connect with people worldwide. Often people also want to connect with me, because then they say, oh, Briony, I'm in the Societies for the Future. I want to do this. And please, can you help me how to do it? And then I mostly just say, just start. Whatever you want to do, then when all those beautiful societies are built and they reflect the consciousness of people living there and surrounding people in the region, because of course those Societies for the Future will be a materialization of the consciousness of humanity. But anyway, whatever you want to do then, I would suggest you start now, and you go already through your own evolution process. And the more you sorted it out now, the better later on. Because that was also what my feeling was. I was remembering when I started a school, and I founded a school in Belgium, how difficult it was, and also what were the difficulties. And one of the difficulties was that we didn't have like already a clear design method about how to, when you're a daily school and you have everyday class and children and parents, then you really have to be clear what your strategy is and what the vision is. Mostly for most people, they want education based on new consciousness, but it's not very clear how to do that. Then the idea is clear and everybody agrees on that main idea, but then bring it into practice requires a lot of like strategy and tools and methods. So I thought, let's just start with it. Let's write it in a book, just develop the tools for it. So the moment we're ready to start all of that, and people can already try it out at home or in their own classroom, and the moment we really launch, then we're ready. Because waiting till everything is built and you have those new societies and then hope that the school is like a paradise, that's mostly not how it works. The paradise you start is really, it's a process of really creating it in a very, I would say, concrete physical form. And that takes time. It's not like, you do that in a quick second of a moment. One thing is, like, I'm a very person who has a lot of inspiration, so I have a lot of visions and ideas, but I also know how long it takes until all those inspiration, vision and ideas really become material, like visible. That can take some time, because it takes physical time and space and material to create it in a very concrete form. So like my advice would be also for people, whatever you think you want to do, then start and do it now, and do it in your neighborhood, and do it with your loved ones and the people you know. And that will help tremendous the whole creation of that consciousness development.
Absolutely. You put that message so well, Briony, to all these, aspirants, who are inspired by what you're doing with societies of the future, and all these people who step forward to come and say, hey, you know what, Briony, I also want to contribute to this. In a certain way, you and them, they're actually pioneering what we've come to realize is going to be the future of employment 8 years, 10 years from now. All these people, they are being attracted by you because actually they are being attracted by their own soul, their calling, their passion. And that itself informs about what is going to be the future of employment very soon. That when we look at Gen Z people in particular, but also we already got a glimpse of that with the millennials, and you've been actually a pioneering spirit, Briony, for that. It is, these people are not interested, they are not driven by a paycheck. Not a paycheck, they are driven by passion. There's a big difference between being driven by a paycheck and being driven by passion. That is one of the 4 key features of the kind of employment world we are entering very soon. The work that we are entering really soon. People are going to be driven by their passion. And you are a great example for that. Like, I am somebody like that. I do not do anything simply because there's a paycheck attached to it. And 10 years from now, the idea of a paycheck will be even less of a consideration, simply because there is going to be so much abundance on the planet. It's unavoidable. Of course, the system is broken, which means part of that abundance might not trickle down into society. But you talk about wealth creation with artificial intelligence happening, with this explosive breakthrough of creativity that's happening. Wealth creation will be multiplied by 40, 100 times compared to how things are, a couple of years ago. With that, there's going to be so much wealth that there will not be any need for any adult to work for a paycheck. Like social policies like a universal basic income scheme, unconditional basic income, etc. These are just starting to happen. And I'm coaching some of these initiatives on different parts of the world. It's going to become a norm in less than 1 decade in most lands across the globe. That means you and I, people from the millennial and Gen Z generations, they would never have to work for paycheck, which is perfect because they don't like anyway to work for a paycheck. They only are driven by their passion. That's one of the characteristics. Another thing is, I don't know about you. I don't know about me. I don't think I'm going to live until I'm 120 years old. But the future generations of people, their life expectancy would be 120 years old. It could be 120. Now, 120. The new generation of people, they're going to work until the very last breath. And that is true for you and me, Briony. We are not going to retire when we are 65. No, because we love too much what we do. We get thrill, deep satisfaction, fulfillment, growth, material abundance, recognition, self-realization out of our work. Our work is not our work. Our work is passion. Our work is our vocation. It is a mission for the higher good. When you have work like that, why would you consider stopping? Because we know from statistics that the seniors who retire, Briony, those who die very soon after retiring are people who die because they miss deeper meaning and higher purpose. They go into a vacuum, meaninglessness, purposelessness, and very soon they die. Now, when we live a life of deeper meaning and higher purpose, there's absolutely no reason to retire. That means until our very last breath, we'll continue working. That could be an 80-year-long professional life for the future generation. That is a second futuristic trend that we know when it comes to work and employment. And then within those 80 years of professional life, number 3, they can expect 10 career changes, 10 plus career changes. If you look at our parents, I know for my parents for sure, they went to university to study one trade. Most people did not even go to a university, but they learned one trade, and for the next 40 years of their life, they just worked in that one trade. They were a teacher, or an architect, or an administrator, or a secretary, or a bookkeeper, or an accountant, lawyer. They worked in one trade for 40 years. With the new generations, 8 to 10 years from now, those generation of people, they're going to have 10 plus careers. So for about maybe 5 years, they might work as accountants. And then they'll feel like, forget it. I think I'll become a travel blogger. And they'll be like, after 5 years, forget that. I think I'll become a garden architect, etc. They will kind of flip because their passion will be calling them elsewhere in these 80 years. They'll have those many careers. And number 4, the very last reality of future work or employment is the future generations' lives will move on 3 rails. Our life, pretty much most of our lives move on 2 rails. One is our personal life, which includes family and relationships and all of that. And 2, our work life. Most of us, we go to work 9 in the morning, work until 5 on weekdays. In the weekends, we spend our time on the first rail, our personal life rail. This is the norm for most of us today. But then, something is changing. In the next decade, we will notice millennial, Gen Z people, etc., and the future generations' lives will move on 3 rails, simultaneously on 3 rails, with very little borders between these 3 rails. One is, of course, their personal life, including having families, children, traveling, friendships, and all hobbies and whatnot. The second rail is their work rail. They will continue working, and work and life will all become spaghetti. And the third rail is actually their learning rail. They're constantly going to be in education until the end of their life. And that obviously means education will become so seamless, so asynchronous, so agile, thanks to technology and the evolution of consciousness. Because I would be having children, I might be a stay-at-home dad, I might work in the farm, I might travel, and my education will join me everywhere. Everywhere. I would be in my sleep, and I'll be educated through my sleep. Because we will be constantly reinventing
it's funny that you say that, because one of the methods which are explained in the book is sleep learning, dream learning, learning through breathing, and blindfolded learning. So we have we will have all those new approaches, and it's true, we can learn most of the things we like. Cognitive skills, you can learn it through much faster through if you use your I would say it, your dream consciousness, than if you really just use your rational consciousness, your daily rational mind. And yeah, I'm making an overview of all the different modalities for the future in that book. So, and I even just spoke with Noemi and got connected to the, I would say, the one who, the founder of the blindfolded learning too. So it's, I would say, very innovative way of learning. So it's, you see how these interviews are unfolding even for my book, because of that interview, I have new information for the book and I get connected with new people. And you never know, maybe this, what we're talking now, will be an important chapter of the book.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, yeah, Sujith, I would say, yeah, I think it's beautiful how you stated that. I think it's all connected, you know, the future of education, the future of employment, the future of our political institutions. I think people who are listening to this interview can see that it's like one circle, and it's not the one or the other, but it's all transforming at the same time. And we all know the moment we have transformation, we also have pain now and then, you know. It can hurt to transform and to make a transition, but it's worth it, you know. It's like yeah, it's like getting a baby. It's painful sometimes, but the moment that new consciousness is born, it's very valuable. It's worth it. Then you think, yeah, okay, it's fine. I survived, and I think it's worth the pain, you know.
Amen. Amen.
So,
you know,
yeah.
You know that I have two kids, you know, myself, and you know, and I'm very involved with my kids, you know, in their upbringing. And yes, sometimes there is pain in it, but I have to say, you know, there is so much joy that coexists next to that pain. It's not even the outcome, you know, once the pain goes away and the joy comes back. No, it's just that pain and joy dances simultaneously next to each other at the same time. That is the nature of evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's beautiful words to close. And thank you so much, Sujith, for sharing your thoughts for the future. They will ripple further, of course, and ripple further in this interview, in the people who are listening to it, inspired by it, and then take it in their material, and ripple further in the written and other tools that we will further develop. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you are inspired. I'm sure you are inspired by this interview. And we'll keep in touch. Make sure you connect with us on the Societies for the Future platform. And hope to see you very soon back.
Big hugs, Briony. Thank you so much for having me here in this conversation.
This interview is part of the Societies for the Future Network project, where we imagine and co-create together the societies for the future. Share this interview with your friends and connect with like-minded pioneers and experts on the worldwide platform societiesforthefuture.org.